You fake it better than you think. The conversations, the eye contact, the part where you're supposed to care what they're saying, you've mastered all of it. Nobody notices. Nobody asks if you're okay because you don't look disconnected. You look fine, functional, maybe even happy, but you know the truth. Somewhere between your brain and your body, the signal got scrambled. You're present, but not there. Listening, but not hearing. Smiling at punchlines while feeling absolutely nothing. And the worst part, you've stopped questioning it. This flatness, this emotional static, it just became normal. Until you're alone again and it slams into you. When was the last time you actually felt something with another person? Not performed it, not mirrored their energy back at them, actually felt it, that pull, that warmth, that stupid, easy thing that used to happen automatically when humans connected. It's gone, or buried. Or maybe you just forgot how to access it. Because you've been running on autopilot so long, you don't remember what the manual controls even feel like anymore. And now you're stuck in this bizarre loop where you crave connection but can't tolerate it when it's right in front of you. Where being around people exhausts you, but being alone confirms every fear you have about yourself. Something broke. You don't know when, but you felt it. And now you're living with the aftermath. It shows up in the smallest, most suffocating ways. Like right now, it's Saturday afternoon, and you're sitting there with that unbearable restlessness clawing at your chest. You can't stand being alone anymore. You need to get out, see someone, talk to someone, feel something other than this hollow ache that follows you from room to room. So you pick up your phone, you scroll through names, and then it hits you. There's no one. Not because your contacts are empty, but because not a single person feels safe enough for what you actually need right now. None of them would understand if you said, I need to leave this apartment before I lose my mind. I need to talk until my throat is raw. I need to remember what it feels like to be alive with another person. So you don't call, you just sit there. So the worst realization lands. Even if someone said yes right now, even if they showed up at your door, you wouldn't have the energy to show up for it. You'd be hollow, going through motions. You'd come home more exhausted than when you left. That's the trap. You're desperate to connect, but too drained to try. And when you do try, you can't access whatever part of you makes connection feel real. So you stop. The isolation gets heavier. Next Saturday will be worse, but this isn't you failing. This is something that happened to you. A psychological pattern that formed without permission, built from years of emotional overload, self-protection, and a nervous system that slowly learned to treat intimacy like danger. Your brain didn't betray you, it tried to save you. The problem is, what kept you safe back then is now what's keeping you stuck. And until you see how that mechanism actually works, how disconnection became your operating system, you'll stay trapped in this loop, watching everyone else plug into life while you're always standing just outside the current. We're going under the surface. We're mapping the invisible architecture that made connection feel impossible. And once you see it, you'll finally have a way through. Stay with me. Now it's time to say something very important. Your brain remembers things your conscious mind has already forgotten. Not the details, not the stories you'd tell at dinner parties, the feeling of what it cost you the last time you were fully open with someone. Maybe it was years ago. Maybe you were younger, more willing to let people in without checking the locks first, and then something happened. Not necessarily traumatic in the cinematic sense, just enough. Someone dismissed you when you needed them. Or they used what you shared as ammunition later, or they left. And the gap they created felt like proof that letting anyone matter that much was a design flaw in your wiring. Your brain filed that under threat detected, not in words, in sensation, in the tightness that now appears in your chest when a conversation starts drifting toward real territory. In the way your body suddenly feels like it needs to leave the room even though nothing dangerous is actually happening. Vulnerability stopped registering as connection and started registering as exposure. So now, whenever someone gets close enough to actually see you, every alarm in your system starts screaming. Not because they're unsafe, but because your brain has been running the same outdated program for so long, it doesn't know how to tell the difference anymore between intimacy and risk. It just knows that last time you let someone in, something hurt, and it's not letting that happen again. The cruel part, you don't even consciously choose this. It happens automatically, underneath your awareness, like breathing. One moment you're in a conversation that's finally going somewhere real, and the next, you've already started pulling back without realizing it, changing the subject, making a joke, shutting down the opening before it fully forms, not because you don't want connection, but because some part of you learned that wanting it isn't safe. You're sitting across from someone at lunch. They're talking, something about their week, a frustration at work, maybe a story you've already half heard before. And you're nodding, you're looking at them. Your face is doing all the right things, but underneath that, something strange is happening. Your hand finds your phone, not because it buzzed. It didn't. You just reached for it. A reflex so automatic you didn't even decide to do it. You glance down. Nothing important. A notification from an app you don't even care about. You swipe it away and look back up. They're still talking. You have no idea what they just said. This happens so often now you don't even register it anymore. The fractured attention. The way your brain splits itself into pieces throughout the day. Half present here, quarter present there. The rest scattered across tabs you left open this morning. You think it's just distraction, but it's not. It's recalibration. Your nervous system wasn't built for the life you're living. It was designed for a handful of faces, voices you'd hear again and again, relationships that had room to breathe and deepen over time. Now it's drowning in input. Thousands of strangers flickering past you on screens. Conversations happening in 3-second bursts. Notifications yanking your focus in opposite directions before you've even finished the first thought. And your brain can't process all of it deeply, so it stops trying. It switches modes, skim instead of absorb, scan instead of see, rush through surfaces because that's the only way to keep up. And the devastating part? Once your system learns to operate this way, it forgets how to go back. Depth starts to feel like effort. Sitting with someone for an hour without breaking eye contact to check your phone becomes almost unbearable. Conversations that ask you to stay locked in, to track what someone's actually saying instead of just waiting for your turn. They drain you now in ways they never used to. You think something's wrong with you, that you've lost the ability to care. But what actually happened is quieter than that. Your brain just learned that surface level is safer, faster, less demanding. And now when depth appears, it feels like drowning in something you can't afford to feel. And then there's the numbness. You've probably noticed it by now, but haven't named it yet. It's that flat, muted quality to everything, like someone turned down the volume on your emotional range and forgot to turn it back up. You're at a party, and everyone around you is laughing, animated, fully plugged into the moment. And you're just observing, not sad, not anxious, just blank, watching it all from behind glass again. You tell yourself you're just tired, or maybe you're not in the mood. 'Tis. But when was the last time you were in the mood? When was the last time something genuinely moved you without you having to work for it? This is what happens when your system hits overload and can't recover. Your brain doesn't have infinite bandwidth for feeling. Every emotion costs energy. Every moment of presence requires fuel. And when you've been running on empty for too long, when every day demands more than you have, when you're constantly bracing for the next thing, never resting, never resetting, your mind makes an executive decision. It starts rationing. It dials everything down. Not because you're broken, because you're conserved. Your brain would rather you feel nothing than feel too much and collapse entirely. So it installs this buffer, this cushion between you and reality. And suddenly, life starts happening at arm's length. You mistake this for apathy, for not caring anymore. But that's not what's happening. You're not disinterested. You're exhausted. Your emotional system is running on fumes, and numbness is just the warning light flashing on the dashboard, telling you something essential has been neglected for far too long. The problem is, you've been ignoring that light for so long now. You've started to believe this muted version of yourself is just who you are, that this is your personality, that you're just not an emotional person. But you are. You're just too drained to access it. And every day you spend in this state, the distance between you and what you actually feel grows a little wider. You've been the strong one for so long you forgot it was a choice you made. The person everyone calls when things fall apart. The one who shows up, who listens, who holds space for other people's chaos without ever asking for the same in return. You've been that person for so long now it's become your identity. The strong friend, the shoulder, the one who has it together even when you absolutely don't. And for years, maybe it felt good, like you were needed, like you mattered because you could handle what others couldn't. But here's what happens when you play that role long enough. You forget how to stop playing it, because emotional labor doesn't just drain you in the moment, it accumulates. Every time you absorb someone else's pain without processing your own, every conversation where you held them together while quietly falling apart inside, every instance you prioritize their crisis over your exhaustion, because saying, "I can't right now," felt like failing them. All of that has a price. And the price is this: eventually you run out. Not dramatically, not all at once, just slowly, imperceptibly, until one day you realize you don't have anything left to give, not to them, not even to yourself. And the worst part? You can't even tell anyone. Because admitting you're burned out from caring too much feels like betraying the very thing that made you valuable to people in the first place. So you keep going, you keep showing up. But now every interaction feels like work. Every text asking, "Can we talk?" makes your chest tighten. Every person who needs something from you triggers this quiet resentment you hate yourself for feeling. You're not heartless, you're just empty. And emptiness doesn't leave room for connection. It barely leaves room for survival. So you start pulling back, not because you don't care, but because caring became the thing that hollowed you out. And now the very act of trying to connect feels like pouring from a cup that's been bone dry for longer than you want to admit. But there's another kind of isolation that's even quieter. The kind that happens when you evolve and nobody around you does. You're sitting in the same conversations you had 5 years ago, the same complaints, the same surface-level observations, the same recycled jokes, and something inside you just stalls. Not because you think you're better than anyone, but because you've spent years doing the internal work, peeling back layers, sitting with uncomfortable truths about yourself, learning to see patterns you used to ignore. And now when you try to talk about any of it, you're met with blank stares, or worse, discomfort, like you've violated some unspoken agreement to keep things light and easy and manageable. So you stop trying, you adapt. You learn to code switch back into the version of yourself people are comfortable with. You laugh at the right moments. You nod along. You talk about nothing because nothing is safe, but underneath that performance, there's this ache, this awareness that you're surrounded by people who knew you before but don't know you now. And maybe they don't want to. Maybe the version of you that asks real questions and refuses to pretend everything's fine is too much, too heavy, too intense, so you shrink yourself back down. You make yourself smaller. You hide the depth you've cultivated because depth makes people uncomfortable when they're committed to staying shallow. And the cruelest part, you start to believe the problem is you, that you've outgrown people in some arrogant, alienating way. But that's not what happened. You just changed. You dug deeper into your own psychology, your own pain, your own truth, and most people around you stayed exactly where they were. And now there's this gap, this unbridgeable distance between where you are and where they are. And it leaves you feeling more alone in a room full of familiar faces than you ever did sitting by yourself. Because loneliness isn't about being alone. It's about being unseen. And right now, nobody's looking deep enough to see you. Here's the paradox that'll make your head spin. You want connection more than almost anything. You fantasize about it. Someone who actually gets you. Someone you don't have to perform for. A conversation that doesn't feel like dragging weight uphill. But the second it's in front of you, The second someone starts moving toward real intimacy, real presence, real emotional honesty, you panic, not visibly, not dramatically, just this low-grade alarm that goes off in your nervous system, telling you to find an exit, to crack a joke, to change the subject, to do anything except stay in that moment and let it happen. You stay stuck in this unbearable place, craving the exact thing you can't let yourself have, standing at the edge of intimacy and backing away every single time because your body remembers, even if your mind doesn't, that the last time you let yourself need something this much, it cost you more than you could afford to lose. The irony is devastating. You're disconnected because you're protecting yourself from connection. You're lonely because you've made loneliness safer than the alternative. And every time you pull away from someone who could actually see you, you're just confirming what some broken part of you has believed all along, that being close to people means getting hurt, so you don't get close, and the cycle tightens. What if I told you none of this means you're broken, that every single thing we just walked through, the numbness, the withdrawal, the inability to feel close to anyone even when you're desperate for it, isn't a malfunction, it's a response. Your nervous system did exactly what it was designed to do. It protected you. When vulnerability became dangerous, it taught you to stay guarded. When presence required more energy than you had, it dimmed the lights. When intimacy started feeling like exposure, it built walls so high you forgot they were even there. You're not damaged, you adapted. An adaptation, when it's done for survival, doesn't ask for permission. It just happens. But here's what also happens. Survival strategies have a shelf life. What saved you 5 years ago can trap you now. The disconnection that once kept you safe from pain is now keeping you from everything else. Joy, depth, the kind of presence that makes life feel like it's worth living. And the shift from "this is protecting me" to "this is suffocating me" doesn't announce itself. You just wake up one day and realize the armor you've been wearing has fused to your skin. That the distance you created has become your new default. That you don't remember how to let someone in anymore because you've been practicing the opposite for so long. So here's the truth you probably aren't ready to hear yet. You can update this, not erase it, not undo years of conditioning overnight, but recalibrate, because your nervous system isn't fixed. It learned this pattern, which means it can learn another one, slowly. In tiny increments that don't feel like progress until you look back and notice something shifted. You start with 5 minutes of presence instead of 5 seconds. You stay in one uncomfortable conversation instead of deflecting. You let someone see you struggling without immediately putting the mask back on. Micro corrections. Little moments where you choose connection over safety, even when every instinct you have is screaming to run. And over time, not quickly, not cleanly, but gradually, the signal starts coming back online. The warmth you thought you'd lost forever begins to flicker. Not because you fixed yourself, but because you slowly, carefully started teaching your system that maybe, just maybe, closeness doesn't have to mean danger anymore. If you made it this far, something in you is still fighting, still reaching, still hoping there's a way back to feeling connected again, and that matters more than you think. Because the fact that you watched this entire video, that you stayed with every uncomfortable truth we unpacked, means the part of you that wants connection hasn't gone silent. It's still there, buried, maybe. Exhausted, definitely, but alive. You don't need to fix this all at once. You just need to start noticing. Notice when you pull away. Notice when the armor goes up. Notice when you choose safety over presence. That awareness alone is the crack that lets the light back in. And if this resonated, if you felt seen in a way you haven't in a long time, share this with someone who might need it too. Subscribe if you want more of this kind of depth, and drop a comment. Tell me which part hit hardest, because we're all trying to find our way back to each other, and maybe, just maybe, we don't have to do it alone.